Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into this classic episode of the show. Visit our website, whoknewpodcast.com, or email us at whoknewpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter and on Facebook at Who Knew Podcast. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/whoknewpodcast. Today we're taking a quick trip in the Tardis with Who Classic. Today's episode is Terror of the Autons. It is the first serial of the 8th season. It's written by Robert Holmes, directed by Barry Letts. It originally aired on the 2nd of January to the 23rd of January in 1971. Episode 4 got the highest views, 8.4 million viewers. The third Doctor is played by John Pertwee. Joe Grant is played by Katie Manning. The Brigadier is played by Nicholas Courtney, and we have the Master being played by Roger Delgado. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hi, this is Frank.
This is Kelsey.
Hello, this is Auburn.
This is Josh.
This is Brian.
We hear a familiar whooshing sound as a blue horse trailer materializes on the fairgrounds of the Traveling International Circus. Luigi Rossini,
Lou to his friends.
the circus owner, goes over to confront the man who steps out of the trailer. It is the Master, another Time Lord who hypnotizes Rossini. They go to the nearby National Space Museum and steal something.
I love how they opened up on these lions in the cage, and they're all just sitting there bored, and you hear the lion roar. Where did that come from?
It's from the one off camera.
At first, I was kind of impressed they got real animals, but obviously they went to a circus and slipped them some bucks.
I'm wondering if some of those shots were actually just stock footage.
Oh, it could have been,
put
yeah.
in. But
there is a scene with the Doctor and the elephants.
Right.
I like how when the Master comes out, he kind of like takes a quick glance at the TARDIS to see, well, what shape did it take this time? Because his chameleon circuit works. So it's blending in. So if he was going somewhere else, it wouldn't look like a horse trailer.
Is that mentioned in this episode?
No,
Or is
but
that
that's
just
just how
something new?
TARDISes work.
Because it's a horse trailer carrying horses for the circus.
So it's blending into its environment, whereas the Doctor's TARDIS is stuck on the police box. It's broken.
Okay.
And I think they made it blue just so that we knew it was a TARDIS.
Yeah, and thank God they did, because the whooshing and fading in would, leave us clueless.
That answer, I was going to ask if all TARDIS were blue, because seeing this horse trailer, I thought if no one had said horse trailer, I would have thought Winnebago or Caravan.
Caravan.
Yeah.
And they called it a horse box, I think, just as
Okay.
I don't know if it was that.
It's just,
Colloquialism? I don't know.
yeah.
And maybe they are all blue, but I don't think so.
Oh, and by the way, when I made the joke about Luigi and Lou, did you notice his accent changed?
Yeah.
When he got called out?
I did,
So
but I wasn't sure
He's
about
got
it.
this stereotypical Italian accent. Your name is Lou. What you doing?
Right, okay. I wasn't
so-
sure that actually happened, but...
Yeah, he did. He just called him on it. The Doctor is working on an experiment in his office at UNIT when he is interrupted by his new assistant, Joe Grant. She shows him a report from the Brigadier about the theft at the museum. The object that was stolen was on loan from UNIT. It was an energy unit from the Nestene, an aggressive alien race who can control and transfer their consciousness into plastics.
Do we all remember the Nestene?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Thank you for remembering.
I don't remember.
Oh, hey, Arlene.
They were the first aliens that we met in Rose, the first episode with Christopher Eccleston.
The shop
Oh, yeah.
mannequins.
there was
And the mannequins were
and the
moving.
living plastic.
So it's the big slug CGI thing that's in the lava.
Yeah, that's why I didn't remember.
Oh, yes. We're back to that, Arlene.
And the Doctor here mentions he didn't want to commit murder. That's why he didn't destroy
The Rock.
the unit.
Which appeared previously in Spearhead in Space.
Yeah.
Or Spearhead from Space. I like the awkwardness of Joe meeting the Doctor and how he had just gotten rid of a companion, Liz Shaw.
Well, he didn't get rid of her. She left.
I'm being funny. Brian, you want to do the backstory?
Okay, well, Liz Shaw was the third Doctor's first companion. She was actually the chief scientist at UNIT. And then the Doctor shows up. And the Doctor is the chief scientist of UNIT. And so she works with the Doctor. And she was very smart. She's a scientist. And this episode makes it seem like Liz got a little tired of working with the Doctor and so went back to Cambridge. When he's meeting Joe, and I want your opinion on this, is the Doctor sexist or is he just an arrogant ass?
B.
They're
A little bit.
exclusive?
I think everyone in this whole episode is kind of
C,
sexist.
A, and B.
Yeah. I don't think he's any more sexist than the rest of the society.
I kind of look. It's like when you see him also with everybody in this episode, he treats everybody inferior, you know. And you know, the first time I watched this, it's like, wow, sexism in the 70s. And I love it when the brigadier calls him out on it, because the doctor is saying, I want somebody smart and intelligent. I want a scientist. The brigadier's like, no, you don't. You want somebody to say you're great and hand you notes.
Because, yeah, he was talking about Liz at that point. You know, Liz was a competent, really good scientist, and I want somebody like that with her qualifications. He goes, no, Liz even said, oh, you want someone to say that you're great. So I think it's more just being pompous.
It's just the doctor's arrogance in just a sexist time.
He does he did come around with her at a certain point, like kind of halfway through. There is an arc there.
Yeah.
Because once he stops talking to her that way, he's kind of treating her more as an equal.
I don't know if he ever talks to her like an equal, but
as much as he's
friendly.
He's not insulting to her anymore.
Yes, he's not insulting
after a certain point. Whereas everyone else, he's still kind of insulted.
I mean, the whole thing does have a sexist attitude. Even Yates with Joe later on, you know, they have their banter, but it's almost more like, oh, I'm not trying to say it. It's like he knows he's being sexist when he talks to her, and she gives it back.
And they do establish early on with Joe. Joe says, you know, no, I'm a full agent. It's like, is it because she's a woman, or does she look really young? And then she's like, no, I'm a full agent. I'm trained in safe cracking and
Cryptozoology?
Yeah. If she can break codes. And I think they're just playing it up against the doctor's arrogance, because the brigadier doesn't seem to mind Joe being there. It's like, this is your assistant. She's going to be good.
What year was
71?
71. And then the time where it seems a little bit more sexist, it's a little later on, but it's when they ask her not to come along. Like, oh, you're too delicate.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was that she seemed too green. You know?
Okay.
But it also had that tinge, definitely, of sexism. Well, that's when she goes, okay, fine, and disregards what they're saying and does her own thing anyway.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Why is the doctor working at UNIT?
The brigadier was introduced with the second doctor, and they were buddies. And then when the third doctor comes around, he's kind of exiled on Earth, so he doesn't really use the TARDIS as his mode of transportation.
Gallifreyans punished him. They said, you know, you're not acting like a real Time Lord, so you know we're going to punish you. And they forced him. They forced the second Doctor to regenerate into the third Doctor, and then they exile him to Earth. And he still has his TARDIS, but it can't travel.
Right, because of that broken.
The dematerialization circuit.
Yeah. In his first adventure, he hooks back up with the Brigadier, convinces the Brigadier that he's the Doctor. And then, since he has nowhere to go, the Brigadier's like, well, work for UNIT. This is what we do. And he does. So the third Doctor's tenure is, for the most part, working with UNIT.
Okay, interesting. That's more interesting. That's a more interesting backstory than I thought that was going to be.
Yeah.
So,
okay. And I mean, it was done for many, many reasons. It was done for production reasons because it was cheaper. They could have standing sets, whereas they were building everything when he was traveling through time. They really did not like the history episodes, so they didn't want to do history episodes anymore. And going into the future was expensive, and this was cost savings.
And in our current Doctor Who series, it's kind of I have a memory of the Doctor mentioning his time with UNIT.
Mm-hmm. He had a job.
It was like his teenage years or something.
I don't know if he calls it teenage years, but and the third Doctor does repair his TARDIS, or the Time Lords give him his TARDIS back. I don't know the circumstances, but he does get eventually the third Doctor will have a fully working TARDIS, which is how when Sarah Jane gets introduced, they go back in time to the medieval, which is what we discussed in a previous podcast.
With a Time Warrior.
Yes.
Yeah, I was curious about that. So, but the TARDIS did look the same throughout all the times that we have.
Slight modification.
But, you know, like the remodeling that they
box.
talk about.
It's a blue box, yeah. But the main takeaway is that the Doctor this third Doctor never used the TARDIS in the way we are used to him using it.
What did fans think of that back then?
They liked the
You have to
Doctor.
ask them, I guess. The TARDIS will go back.
He's
Well, he was kind of a response to the James Bond stuff coming out at this time.
That's why he has his little Venetian jiu-jitsu and
Kung Fu
moves.
And Bessie, his car.
Oh, yeah, the car.
And he's augmented the car to have like a force field, and someone tries to steal it, we'll lock them in, and he can.
Does it really?
Yeah, and he's modified the car so that he can travel at extremely high speeds and stop on a dime without the people
He could have
going through the windshield. You know, the inertial dampeners are inside in the car.
You could have modified it to have shocks.
I know.
Well, where's the fun in that? That's what he loved about the car.
Is it?
Did you see the license plate on it?
Yes.
Who won?
Does it have a roof that comes eventually?
I
or-
don't think it ever had a
'cause
roof.
in Britain, wouldn't there? Most days are rainy. Yeah,
They're used to it. He has a
used to it.
cloak.
that's true.
The master goes to a radio telescope and kills Googe, an assistant scientist, by shrinking him and locking him in Googe's lunchbox.
As you do.
He attaches the Nestene unit to the console to charge it. Another scientist, Professor Phillips, goes to the control cabin to investigate, and the master hypnotizes him as well. He sends Phillips to the circus grounds with the box in his car. He is to leave the car there and drive the horse trailer when the circus moves on. So that happened. That lunchbox effect was impressive for the time. I mean, I'm glad, like we've mentioned before, it's not a doll.
Yeah, I'm very happy it's not a doll.
And I think it works because it's a quick shot. You don't focus on it.
Now, I liked how the brigadier made the doctor fire Joe Grant. It's like, you don't want her? Fine, you fire her. And the doctor couldn't do it. It's like, okay, it seemed more like he's like, yeah, I'm being an idiot, rather than her competence.
And that because of the relationship he has with the brigadier can say these things to him and he'll listen.
I do like the relationship of the doctor and the brigadier. I think because there's implied history there, so it feels more like a doctor-companion relationship that I'm used to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because you said this is the second season with this third Doctor. Yes, because it was Liz Shaw's season and then this season.
Yeah,
So
right.
so he's already been around over a year. This version of the Doctor and the second Doctor
Yeah.
saw the brigadier twice.
So that implied history is actual history.
Yeah. So it's like, they have built this relationship, and the brigadier is considered a companion.
And it is, he respects the doctor, but also knows the doctor's can be a real pompous jerk.
And he will immediately
Call
call
him
him
on
out.
Right.
And the reverse is true too. The Doctor has a respect for the brigadier, but he also knows he can be a pompous military ass, and he'll smack him down if he needs to. The brigadier and Captain Yates arrive at Unit and tell the Doctor about the missing scientists from the radio telescope. They go to the telescope to investigate, and the Doctor leaves the group to climb up to the control cabin. There he meets another Time Lord who warns the Doctor that the Master is on Earth. He also warns the Doctor about a bomb the Master placed in the control room and then disappears. The Doctor stops the bomb from exploding and finds Googe's shrunken body.
Hooray.
So tell us about the Time Lords.
I just want to say at first, I love this scene. That's just me.
That is just you.
That Time Lord, I mean, he's an unnamed Time Lord. He doesn't have like a title or anything. He's just
Is it
Time
the
Lord.
first time we've ever seen him?
That Time Lord, yes.
They just in the past, other Time Lords have just popped up.
Correct.
To be like,
And they will
to
again.
give us, hey, don't go in that door.
Yep. They will just show up whenever they want to show up.
It definitely feels like Q. I mean, to use our Star Trek reference,
yeah.
but like that kind of omnipotent alien beings playing in the world. And this is
That's
from
kind
not
of what the Time
having-
Lords were.
Okay,
But the Time Lords don't play in the world. The Time Lords take the opposite view.
Right.
They are omniscient in their own view, but they stay away. They stay out of things.
Oh, so maybe is it because he's stuck there on Earth? We might as well throw him a bone every now and then. Don't let him set off that booby trap.
If you want to believe it that way, yes. The real reason is they needed to get the exposition out into the script.
well, yeah,
But because if he's exiled on Earth, why would you want to help him?
I thought of more of Gazoo rather than Q. Gazoo from the Flintstones.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
popped up.
You're told straight out exactly what the Master is. He's a renegade Time Lord. He causes trouble.
He's smarter than the doctor.
He did better in school, which means that they went to the same school. So you're learning a lot of world building information in this scene. And it's just kind of like, hi, I'm here to give exposition and then I'm going to leave. Good luck.
I think if he would have had a better entrance, I would have then been able to listen to all this interesting dialogue. But I was so thrown off. I was like, what's this little person doing? Like this little tiny, oh, someone else got shrunk. Oh, wait, no, what's happening? He's growing bigger.
He was
Okay.
hanging out there. He was like 30 feet.
Yeah, but because
Hanging out
of
in
the
space.
but because
And
of
then he
the
came forward.
I
the
thought he was small.
technology
No,
of the
I look at
time.
him as he's out in the distance.
no, he was out there and then he floated in.
He
Yes.
floated in.
Oh.
It didn't look like that, so it was confusing. And I feel like that's my relationship with this entire episode is I spend half the time going, what is going on?
Right.
I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and I'm missing all of the dialogue
Yes.
that guess is telling me what's going on.
Yeah. And like we've
So-
said offline, when we watch these the second time, we liked it better. You do keep catching more things the more you watch because the technology and the effects aren't pulling you out of the story.
But I think it is written more, at least this season or this episodes that we saw, for kids where you don't need to explain everything. You can make these jumps. It's like, this is the part that's really important that we're showing you. How they got there, what they're doing, what they found out. You don't need that when you're, 9 or 10 and watching this.
There are also a lot of long pauses of people thinking and doing something off screen. And I can't imagine kids having the patience to watch it.
Well, so remember, it's only in half-hour increments back then.
Even still.
Oh, no, we did. Seriously, this is before MTV editing.
I'm not doubting it. I'm just saying it's just, there were a lot of just pauses of him. Someone says something to him and then he thinks, but you don't really see that he's thinking. And there's just, there's a lot of fat.
We had, growing up on Saturday morning things, there's a lot of things you look at it and you go,
it's definitely a sign of the time.
How on earth did I watch this? But we couldn't look away.
There was, Electra Woman and Dinah Girl and Dr. Shrinker and all those really bad Saturday morning
Shazam and Isis. And, I'm sure they're just as slow as Doctor Who. But we loved them.
I'm not... yep.
One thing, seeing more Time Lords, it does... Because I only know the modern show mostly, I do feel like we're missing out on something with all of the Gallifreyans being like kind of taken out of the story. I know we will eventually get to see some more later than where we're at right now in the podcast itself, but they are an interesting character that probably would have been... I mean, at least I feel like it would have been neat to see more of them. I know we got the Doctor and the Master that we just watched in the modern show, but it would have been cool to see more of these like butler guys with umbrellas popping up. And I'm sure that the modern show would have done it in a more interesting way, like more interesting, different kinds of TARDIS that the Gallifreyans like came to either Earth or to other stories that the Doctor had. So it might be worth like seeing some of the older like Gallifreyan intrigue that we don't get in this show. Just for you guys thinking about.
We are thinking about that.
Okay. Good.
You find out that the Doctor, the Doctor knows the Master. He's dealt with the Master before. The one thing I just wanted to point out is that he says quickly that the Master's weakness is vanity.
Yeah, I thought that was ironic.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially with this Doctor being the dandy of the...
Right, exactly.
But this is the first time like any audience is seeing the Master.
Yes, this episode has a couple of firsts. It's the first of Joe Grant, which is the companion. It's the first of the Master, which is the Roger Delgado plays the Master in this case. And I have it here that Captain Yates, this is his first episode. Richard Franklin plays Captain Yates, so...
But we're learning all of the Master's like skills and
we're learning everything
motivations
about the
with
Master
them.
in this.
Okay.
His weapons as well.
Okay. Because I know like it's great storytelling to talk about something as if it's happened before, but kind of taking these out of context. Like sometimes I don't know if there is more context that was in a different show. So it's good to know that this is
you would easily get that from this episode because they're talking about the Nestene and Autons past history. And they're talking about the Master's past history. Well, we've never seen the Master before, but we have seen the Autons and the Nestene before. So those references are to previous episodes.
And Yates, they say, was in that Nestene episode before.
The Spearhead in Space.
But I don't think it was. I think they're just trying to bring him into the storyline.
So any listeners know about Captain Yates, let us know.
Mike.
The Master visits a plastics factory and hypnotizes the owner, Rex Farrell. Together, they alter the chemical makeup of the plastic, connect the Nestene unit, and begin to create bodies. Mr. McDermott, a longtime loyal employee, dislikes the changes and the fact that Mr. Farrell seems to hand over the company to this unknown Colonel Masters. He calls Farrell's father, who started the company, to talk sense into his son. He confronts the Master about the quality of the new plastic and is suffocated by a plastic chair.
Yep.
The Master is disappointed, as I am, with the amount of plastic needed, and devises a way to kill humans more efficiently.
No, I didn't catch that. That was why. That maybe I did that. That he was disappointed in that.
Yeah, it took yards of plastic to do this. It could be much more efficiently with just inches.
That shot was reversed, and they use it several times in this episode.
I don't know, does anybody remember plastic furniture or
Yes.
beanbag chairs and trying to get out of them?
I was wondering if in the 70s they had plastic chairs.
Yeah.
So it was an odd choice, I guess.
Well,
it was new at the time,
production.
right?
Yeah, it was 71.
It was new at the
so
time.
Okay.
Probably in the mid-70s is when we got big into plastic.
And
Okay,
anybody
so
who had
that would have been an impressive shot in 1971.
Oh, no.
No.
Oh, it would have looked
Okay.
dreadful then too. Somebody probably on the production. Ooh, look! And I spent £5 on this, and it's a really cheap way of having somebody die. It's awful, but it is made for little kids, and that's a little kid moment where it's just like, oh, the chair is killing him.
Especially the parents just bought a chair. And it's like, it's in our house.
But what I think this episode is doing, back to what you're saying about the chair, is that it's taking things that are current in that time period and making them scary. Like plastic chairs are new, and I'll bring up the other ones that are coming up soon.
Yeah.
I feel like one of the writers in the writer's room was really old because of the fact that this is when plastic is starting to take over everything in the household.
Yes.
So there's plastic plates and there's plastic bowls and now there's plastic furniture and people were there were some
much
people
plastic.
who were really afraid of that happening and there's other
It's
people
chemicals.
oh cool it's new. And so yeah, in 1975, people were still drinking their milk out of glass bottles. So you have to think about it. It's still plastic. It's fairly new in the household.
So maybe I'm just like looking at this wrong, the scene. It was supposed to be a plastic chair.
See, on the storyline, McDermott isn't surprised that this blob of plastic changed itself into a plastic chair. No, it was a self-inflating plastic chair.
Okay.
So it was supposed to be a plastic
Okay.
chair.
See, I
because
thought it was
McDermott
supposed to be this magical moment that no one had ever seen before.
Right.
No.
Like it could have inflated. It could have started to inflate. They could have cut to the other people, cut back, and it's inflated. But we watched the whole thing.
Or the master could have just been like, take for instance this plastic inflatable chair. Watch how I'm going to cause the plastic to kill this person.
Right. Well, I do think Brian's right. Like, it still was relatively new technology for people on TV to see it actually inflate. But they didn't have to watch the whole thing.
Right.
That's why I thought it was the joke of it was, the gag of it is that it was a solid piece of plastic that became a chair out of
Yes.
sci-fi magic.
I'm with you, Josh. That's what I thought. And that's why I thought it was ridiculous that they were using...
That's
an
why you thought it was
inflatable-
ridiculous?
Yes, because I was like, who's gonna buy this
Right.
scene?
But now that we
Because
know
everyone knows. Oh, that's an inflatable plastic chair.
Right.
Like I have one
Right.
in my den.
Yeah, but now that we know what the plot of the whole show was, I see what you're saying
Yes.
now that he was like, this is a waste of materials.
Yes.
We're going to put this in everyone's home.
Yeah, you kind of get it on the
Yeah.
second viewing.
Yeah, I get it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but McDermott didn't seem fazed by a solid plastic thing turning into a chair.
No.
That's not who was, upset about.
Well-
He was upset because plastic is supposed to be nice and warm and cozy.
And this is black and
this
ugly
is
and
cold.
stupid.
Clammy?
It's like,
When
it's
he-
the wrong texture of
Clammy? Why
plastic.
was it
So that's what he was going
I thought he
for.
was saying that because it was an alien being.
No.
I didn't think
Yes,
it was.
I
I
know.
don't
He
think,
just thought
I
it was
didn't
ugly
think-
plastic. He
Because
was
they
a
changed,
plastics
he
guy.
changed their plastic. It's like now we lost everything for the today because
I
now
didn't
you've
get
changed
that.
the
I thought he
thing.
was-
It's supposed to be a different feel.
I thought
It's
it
supposed to
was
have
so
different
weird
consistency.
feeling because it was an alien.
He's the plastics guy. This
Right,
is,
right.
his plastics, he's...
I get it. No, I bet you I will like this more at second viewing.
But he's also not the really, really brightest person either because, when it's starting to move and grab him, stand up.
Well, he's being hypnotized to sit down.
Oh, is
The
that what it
doctor
is?
forces
Is
him.
that what it is?
Yeah, because
what
he's
I
like,
got.
I don't want to deal with this. It's cold. It's not the texture. And the doctor's
okay.
doing that, and he's then rubbing his head.
Right, yeah,
Because he's
That's
like being
right, he
hypnotized
does
to
do
sit
that.
down, so he sits down. And then,
So really, the master's
sticky.
plan is really bad all around.
and the master realizes that, moves
Well,
on to
come
something
on.
else.
Or it could be the fumes from the plastic keeping him sedated.
But that's what I was saying. Did you ever try and get out of one of those that's not fully inflated? It's tough.
Yes, but still,
There's nothing to really push against.
Although, you know what? I have almost died trying to get out of those chairs.
Were you in a plastics factory?
No, I was in the 70s.
This takes
I
place in the
had
70s.
I had a pink one.
Yeah, we didn't have black.
And you could
Uh-oh.
see through it. Like you could see
Yeah.
through. It was like
I remember those. I remember this.
translucent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the 90s.
Yeah.
I want to point out here, this is the scene where at one point the master says, he's talking about the doctor, and he says the doctor's weakness is curiosity. So, but there's kind of some parallels going on here where the master's weakness is vanity, and the doctor's weakness is curiosity. They're giving you these guys are equals, but they're opposites. So
But
I
they're
think
the
that's
same.
Yeah, that's it's the growth of we're making a Moriarty to a Holmes.
That's exactly what I got.
Yeah,
I really like the actor.
Oh, yeah.
I really liked him.
Delgado's great.
Yeah.
very mustache twirling.
Well, yes.
It's like, I wonder who the bad guy is. Oh, the one that has the facial hair.
Yeah, you mentioned the Moriarty-ness of the Master, and that came about because the Brigadier and the Doctor became Sherlock Holmes and John Watson. And then they needed that third character to round out the trio. And so that's why they introduced the Master.
I also like how the doctor says to them, "Oh, you think you can't hypnotize somebody to kill themselves?" Which is directly years later what the 10th Doctor says in his first episode. He's like, with the blood control, he's like, "Oh, you can hypnotize someone, but you can't hypnotize them to death." Third Doctor is saying, "So you think you can't hypnotize somebody to death? Well, that's wrong. You can." So I just thought that was a fun little parallel.
One little scene that was in part of this is the Doctor and the Brigadier, and the Doctor had defused that bomb that the Master left for him. And the Brigadier's like, "Oh, great, we can use it. It's that can be that powerful." And the Doctor says, "No, I've already destroyed it. I'm not giving this to UNIT. You have no right
And
to
that's
this weapon."
the Doctor.
It was just one little scene, just a few lines that I thought did really well. Also between the relationship of the Brigadier, we can use this alien technology. When the Doctor saying, "No, you can't. I don't trust you guys with this. I don't trust anybody with this."
Yeah. I also liked it earlier when he's taking it apart and Yates is like, "Is it diffused?" Pause. Now it is.
I just like the fact that the curiosity aspect of the Doctor continues on throughout his several regenerations or incarnations. And like, I guess this one is most realized with the 10th Doctor in the Satan Pit and the Impossible Planet, where his curiosity is what drives him to explore what's down in the pit.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Professor Phillips' car is found abandoned after the circus moves on. In it was the crate, which is brought back to UNIT. Jo goes on her own to investigate, finds the factory, and is discovered by the Master who, you guessed it, hypnotizes her. She is sent back to UNIT with instructions to open the crate, which will explode when opened. The Doctor stops her and throws the bomb out the window to the painting of the sea in the backdrop. I love it. And is it the sergeant or is it Yates who's like, "Oh, you just threw a bomb into the harbor. We're going to get complaints about that." And the Doctor's like, "You're not dead."
But they don't really play up the fact that Jo goes out on her own and finds the right factory.
Yeah, she makes that the last time you see
they
her.
don't
She's
really
like,
talk about that at
"Oh."
all.
Well, she has that last line when everybody's like getting their jobs to do, and she's like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna go off and make lists like a good little secretary." And she doesn't. She goes off investigating and finds a plastics factory. The first person to go, "Well, we're dealing with plastics. Let's go to a plastics factory." But then the silly girl has to knock over the things making the noise.
Love the way she punched the guy.
Oh yeah,
With all her weight.
Yeah.
She gave it all she could
Like
on
an
that
action
one.
doll.
I was gonna say,
Where you have to wind
kung
up.
fu action punch.
A lot of slaps and punches seem to knock people out on the ground in this.
The 70s were
Episode.
a weaker
When people
time.
get shot, they fall forward.
Well, well, half of acting is reacting.
Yeah, that's true.
Rex's father arrives at the factory, unhappy about the Master's influence over his son and the factory. The Master tries to hypnotize him, but he resists. He orders his son to get rid of Colonel Masters and return the factory to normal, or he will come out of retirement and take control himself. The Master gives Mr. Farrell an ugly doll as a sample of the plastic. The doll begins to move in the back seat of the car until he turns on the air to cool down the car, making the doll dormant once again.
Phew.
He takes the doll into his home to show his wife.
As you do.
They worry about their son's ability to run the company. As she leaves the room, the doll wakes and kills Mr. Farrell. This doll is ridiculous.
Ugly.
I thought that backseat shot, though, was impressive for the technology they had again at the time.
For the
It was
time.
not. No.
For the time. The only thing I would have liked were to have shadows on it, but other than that, I mean, if it wasn't moving, it looked like it was a doll in the backseat.
It realized all my childhood fears that my dolls were going to come to life and murder me.
See,
So it was effective.
Effective. It was creepy looking.
yeah.
Especially when it moved.
It
The
was,
little person that they put in there.
Who couldn't get up?
because of the plastic
It was, oh,
or the
creepy.
rubber. I don't know what they used.
Oh, that wasn't how they looked. They didn't just get a guy look like that, and they made a.
Well, he's naked, though. I don't know.
That's really gross.
Yeah. Thanks for that image, Josh.
When were the troll dolls made?
No,
The
60s.
80s? 60s?
I think it was the 60s, yeah. The first
50s,
one.
60s?
But this is not a troll, though.
I mean, it's a troll of a doll.
It's a troll.
But the idea of the supposed ugly cute doll, you look at it, it's
It
not the
was
greatest, but
cute,
everybody
you know,
falls in love
too.
with it.
There would be some kids who would want a doll like that because they like ugly looking things.
Like-
But still, it's like,
To scare their siblings.
no.
I mean, ugly doll is a thing
Just,
now.
ugh.
So it's a trendsetter. Doctor Who was forward thinking.
Yeah. I do like the fact that the father throws off the hypnotism.
Do you think it's because he's older?
No,
No, I just think 'cause he's a
got
strong-willed-
strong-willed.
Okay.
He's a strong-willed personality.
Just wondering if like his
You know.
cataracts were going or something.
He was always worried about everything. At that point, that was your life. You put your whole life
Oh,
into
yeah.
it. You built that business. There was everything. And it's like you just gave it over to your son. It seemed like that was a recent transition. Transition?
Transfer?
Transition. Because of what McDermott was saying. I'll call your father.
The Doctor locates the circus and Joe sneaks a ride in his back seat. He finds the Master's TARDIS but is captured by Rossini and the strongman Tony. Joe sees this and calls the Brigadier for backup and then sees Professor Phillips enter the horse trailer. Rossini interrogates the Doctor and then decides to call the Master for instructions. Tony is left to guard the Doctor, but Joe sneaks up on him and knocks him out. Philip arrives with orders to kill the Doctor but fights the command, killing himself instead.
This scene, I don't care what you guys say, this made me laugh and makes the whole story for me. Because, okay, they have the Doctor, they have him tied up. He goes, right, my dear chap, there's no need to do that. I'm perfectly prepared to answer all your questions. And then they start torturing him. Yeah, what was the question? And then he goes on further to go, you've got no right to keep me here, you know. I've got a good mind to call for help. Help! 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 Just the way he does it is so stupid, but it made me laugh. And then the strongman. Do you guys remember the strongman?
it's from
Roy
that-
Stewart
it's
is
from that other episode,
Yeah,
right?
good job.
The first Cybermen episode.
Second Cyberman. episode.
Second Cyber. This first one that we talked about.
Yes, the Tomb of the Cybermen.
It's
This
the
is
same
the
actor or
Cybermen.
the same character?
same actor,
Same actor.
that played Tolberman in Tomb of the Cybermen.
And again, unfortunately, they have a black actor who
Yeah.
apparently
The only tall
Can't
black
talk.
actor in Britain.
All of Britain.
That's what he does.
So sexist and racist.
There you go.
Okay.
Hey, he got paid.
It's a product of the time.
And right before this, they were talking to Joe, trying to get her to remember what was going on and where the factory is, because she came out of the hypnosis. Her reaction of, I just can't remember, holding her head, was a little bit over the top, I think. But then they're going, okay, you've been through a lot. Stay here. We're going to go investigate. And she has that side-eye look of, okay, I'll do what you men tell me to. And then she sneaks into the car and goes and saves the day.
Then again, that's where Brian and I were saying that it's more sexist in this situation than it was.
This situation is. I thought you were referring to earlier on when they get to the radio telescope and he says, "No, I'll go up alone." I don't think that moment he's saying, "You're just a woman and you can't handle the altitude." I just think it's the Doctor being like, "I don't want to be bothered with anybody else right now."
Yeah.
But this case, you're just kind of like, "Oh, all right, yeah, leave the girl."
Yeah. Oh, you're too delicate. You just been through something really traumatic.
And if a guy was through that same trauma, it'd be, shake it off, man. Pull up the bootstraps and let's go.
Especially the Brigadier. Yeah, if it had been Yates, it'd be, man, step up.
Walk it off.
Yeah.
But then
needs to
that
be
was
done.
so normal then. Actually,
Right.
kind of is kind
Well,
of
that's why she did the side eye.
too.
It's like, yeah, there's no arguing with you. You're just going to say that and you're wrong. But why waste the breath in arguing?
But it is interesting that this was written by male writers who then wrote a woman going, like, yes, I am going along with you. Okay. And I laughed at that going, oh, yeah. Oh, I'm going to smile. I'm just cute. To like distract the guy. And then she goes off and does whatever she wants and saves the day. She still contributes to the action. The writers wrote her to go, they want me to stay behind because I'm just a girl. And she doesn't. So it's like, it's kind of like for the product of its time, it's a little bit of the writers going, yeah, women don't buy this crap.
Yeah, I think it's definitely calling out sexism. It's in the script.
In its time.
Yeah.
It's calling out sexism in a sexist way because it's 1971.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't be. It's just to point out now that it wouldn't be written that way
At all.
now
Right.
at
At
all.
all.
The whole, yeah, I'll do it, and then do whatever you
The
want.
going along with it.
Yeah,
wouldn't
going.
ever
No, it would
happen.
be
It'd
the
be called out.
defiance from the beginning.
Right.
Like, why are you treating me like this?
Well, plus, I mean, the whole social revolution button was pushed just like 3 years before this episode aired.
Yeah. So this is actually their way of showing. The woman who plays Uhura, Nichelle Nichols, she will say to her dying day, the mini skirts on the Enterprise that everybody laughs at now and says how sexist. She says, Absolutely not. It was the opposite. Mini skirts in the 60s were a sign of women's freedom and liberation and a sign of the revolution. We will wear what we want when we want to wear it. And she says that. She's like, no, the mini skirts, that was progress. Whereas people nowadays look at that and go, that is the most ridiculous, stupid thing we've ever seen in our lives. Times change.
No, the most ridiculous, stupid thing we've ever seen in our lives was men wearing those mini skirts in the beginning of Next Generation.
Yes, that was very stupid. Yes.
No, I completely agree with you. That for its time, it was very progressive. It's just a subtle way for us to see what progressive was even backwards.
Exactly.
Then. And I think it's
Totally.
interesting to look at now. Like, I watched musicals that I loved when I was a child, and I was like, ugh. Why? Why would they say something like that?
Another thing that Joe did that I thought was really good and something that possibly a male companion would not do is she calls for help. She called the brigadier. This is what's going on. Dr. Thurl, come over, And then she also got the doctor out of the main trouble. But a lot of times a male person would just go in, not call for the backup, and just by serendipity,
Actually,
something else, they would just...
I'm going to say a lot of
helpful.
companions would have just done that, men or women. But
at
Joe
this time,
calls the brigadier, which is like, yes, that makes sense. It's not because you're a weak female. It's because we need help.
It's her unit training.
It's her unit training.
The doctor and Joe escape Rossini's office, but make a quick stop at the trailer so the doctor can take the dematerialization circuit from it. Rossini and the circus people catch up to him and begin beating the doctor. 2 policemen arrest the doctor and Joe and drive them away as the brigadier arrives. He and Captain Yates follow the police car to a quarry.
Isn't it always a quarry?
It's the same quarry.
A quarry quandary?
The police are Autons. The doctor and Joe make a run for it and jump in the car with the brigadier and Yates, and they return to unit. There, the doctor tries to use the circuit with his Tardis, but they are different and incompatible.
Oh, Mac versus PC.
Here's another quote that I wrote from the doctor when, what's wrong with being childish? I like being childish.
Yes. But Joe was criticized for being childish earlier.
Yes.
And now...
It's reversed.
By the doctor?
No, by...
Yates.
Is it Yates or Brigadier?
You're being
Yates?
childish. And she goes,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Right. Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, fine. It's another example of, no, it's not because you're a woman. It's because you're being childish. Because then the doctor, you're being childish, doctor.
But he says it is a bit of a tantrum. I like being childish because I can be what I want. It was because of arrogance. But in the 4th Doctor later on, likes being childish because of the wonder of it.
Yeah, because he just likes being a child.
Because it's just fun.
Yeah.
But it's the way that it was taken. It's like he's doing it really just because, no, he knows he's wrong and just still being pompous and can't say he was wrong.
And the way he comes out of the TARDIS smoking from the not working circuit. It's just hilarious.
Yeah. The face masks.
Yeah.
It's like, hi, I'm an actor. Then you cut back, hi,
I'm a guy with a mask
covered with this really bad plastic.
and some blue
Are
screen.
you talking about the close-up
Of the cop, driving the car.
I think the second shot isn't even an actor. It's just a dummy,
Dummy.
head
Yeah.
with a mask over
It's
it.
just so terrible.
I'm like, this is how you end the episode?
And the eyes are even still silver from underneath it, like they've been looking at him the whole time.
Yeah.
Then when you see the other cop whose mask hasn't fallen off yet, his eyes are perfectly fine.
Can you just see them in the editing room going, how
are we
quick
gonna
can-
do
How
this?"
quick can we make this cut?
I don't think there's barely any one establishing shot in the whole show because they keep switching locations, and it's just like a slam cut, like it's the same scene.
Watching the doctor get beat up was
Yep.
a different thing than
Yeah.
I've seen on the recent show. And it was,
And Joe.
and Joe, yeah, it definitely made me uncomfortable to see that
They had a
happen. 'cause
bat.
They had
And
a
they
bat.
were
I mean, there was a
wailing on
group of people. Like,
Yeah.
he would be very injured if that
Right.
was a real beatdown. I mean,
Yeah,
it
there
was
are parts of
disheartening
this
to
where you're
see.
just kind of going, ooh, they wouldn't do that today.
Yeah, there's a bunch of times in this episode where the doctor kind of felt like a regular person at times. I can't recall many instances, but I remember thinking that a few times.
Well, because this was the James Bond era,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
so it
just-
was
it's-
much more.
Not that it's good or bad, it struck me how different it was, like Auburn's saying.
Well, and then right after the cliffhanger of the Auton being the police officer, the doctor's first reaction wasn't to try to talk to or reason with the plastic. It was that karate chop
Right.
in a driving vehicle, you know. That also came out at me as just like not what I'm used to seeing from the doctor.
Well, how do you rationalize with plastic?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember from Rose if he
doesn't
tried.
he doesn't
try to talk
rationalize
to
with
them.
plastic. He tries to rationalize with the Nestene.
Right.
But he doesn't do it with the Autons.
He rips an arm off in the Autons.
Right, and he would have known, like as you guys said, that he's had experience with the Nestene at least and the Autons as well.
Yeah, he knows they're kind of mindless. And that's kind of how we're trying to retro.
Sure.
No, it really was just karate chop it.
Yeah.
I love how you can't shoot it. They're Autons. You can't shoot it. I love Yates. It's just like, I'm going to run him over with the car.
That was my favorite moment.
That's great. It
in the
was
whole
so
episode.
great. It was just like, yeah, I'm not taking any crap from this. You're going over the hill.
Dude, and
And that guy went down that hill. I'm watching it. I'm like, oh my god, that's some stunt.
That's so funny. We did watch this together.
Yeah,
Because that was my theme song. I was also like, ooh, good
And then
job,
I was wondering, I was
stunt
like,
double. That was awesome.
I was like, he seems
He earned
pretty.
his paycheck.
He seems pretty awake for someone who's going to be like unconscious at the end, but then he got right back up and
Yeah.
kept going. And so that was probably the most impressive filmmaking part of this whole.
That was stuntman Denny Powell, and
All right,
he
Denny.
Good job, Denny.
and he asked to specifically do that.
Oh yeah.
nice.
Good for him.
It was also in that car ride at the beginning of it, Kelsey. I think you noticed some of like the very casual sexism of the doctor. The way that he responded to Joe, like was she looking at the dematerialization circuit?
No,
and
just a lot of that. That scene and the previous scene where she rescues him, they duck for the bomb to explode outside, and then to get her to get up, the doctor pats Joe on the side hip butt talks area, and I was just like, oh.
Well, wouldn't that get you to get up quickly?
Yeah, but it wasn't. I'm not used to seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. On a kid's show.
On a
Doctor
kid's
Who.
show, like he could have said, "Let's go."
Right.
But the cat, and then in the car ride, he nudges her away at one point, or just the whole.
He is dismissing her
Just
in
the
car.
way, just the patronizing way that the doctor treats Joe bothered me.
I think it's supposed to, because I don't think there was much of that towards the end of this story arc of the 4 episodes. Like she wins him over.
Joe is a strong character, and I do really like Joe. I like a lot of her episodes, but she is the companion there to be like, what is it, Doctor?
But what you're saying about her, you need to explain this to Joe. The commentary says that was the purpose of that character, regardless of who it would have been, because the previous companion, Liz Shaw, was smart with the doctor. So they were like, okay, do this. Okay, let's go. As opposed to, why do we need to do this? Why do we need to do that?
They needed the stupid character.
Not stupid, the young.
They needed the character to ask.
Explain to the audience.
Yes, they needed the character to be the audience. It has been days with no word of the master's location. He has been creating plastic flowers and distributing them around the city using the Autons in big, fat, really ugly carnival masks. A man from the ministry, Brown Rose, that's Brown Rose,
Gotcha.
not Brown Nose,
Right.
arrives at unit and tells them about a group of recent deaths by asphyxiation. There is no connection among the victims except for the first 2 who worked at the same plastics factory, McDermott and Mr. Farrell Sr. The doctor and Joe visit Widow Farrell, who tells them about how they worried about their son and the new client, Colonel Masters. She also gives them the doll.
Hooray. Those ugly carnival masks, those were real life things in Britain at the time.
I'm so sorry.
They were used to give samples of, I think, detergent around to like people in the markets.
They literally walked up to people, gave people things for the people to use, and people took them.
That's another thing the story is doing, is taking someplace that's common and making it terrifying.
Oh.
It's teaching you don't take anything from someone wearing a mask.
Joe earlier had mentioned about the promotional flowers, and the doctor just dismissed it. But then it was brought up by Yates. It's like, oh, really? Joe did it again. She knew.
I was just this might be a dumb epiphany, but I just had an epiphany. So so at the beginning,
Colors.
it's a
This
plastic
is
chair that kills people, and then it's a doll that kills people, and then finally it's the flower. So the master was refining this whole time. He was like he was experimenting, and yeah, I just realized that just now.
He is refining his plan.
Yes. Yeah, I do remember you saying that, but now I just realized that, oh no, that was in the episode.
I think also too they talk so fast in these earlier episodes.
If you do watch it a second time,
Yeah.
put the captions on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you really do catch a little bit more when the captions are on. Because that's what we do.
I was half paying attention to it, and I still got it.
Well,
okay.
Like, oh,
I think it's more the writing period.
Yeah.
The writing time.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were making a statement.
by the time I saw the flower, I'm like, that's pretty clever. That's how they show that they've progressed and made things better. And then they also have like the phone cord by this time too.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're getting there.
We're going to get there, yeah.
I was like, oh, that's clever. And that's all I thought. I'm like, good way of not telling us that we're dumb and can't figure it out on our own.
But had no one seen Star Trek 4 years earlier and know that big plasticky looking flowers like that will shoot things at you and make you do things you don't want to do?
Maybe that's where they got the inspiration from.
Maybe.
No, I have never seen Star Trek. Sorry.
We're just going to let that go.
Set phasers to angry.
Eugene, in all your work and research for this episode, did they write the Master? Did they know they were going to bring the Master back?
Yes, that is correct.
So a lot of this Master stuff is set up.
The impetus of this is that they needed a villain to carry through the whole season. So this whole season has the Master coming back, like the Sea Devils and these other episodes are all the Master.
Are they really? Mm-hmm. Oh, I did not know that.
And there wasn't a better one?
No.
We tried.
We tried.
We really did.
Because, I mean, even though the Master and the Doctor don't have any scenes together, they're always talking about each other.
Yeah, they do.
And not yet.
Well, not yet from where we are in the story, but...
Right, and we're like 3 episodes in.
That's
They
true.
haven't met yet.
Okay. Haven't met yet.
Like Khan and Kirk.
Exactly.
Wow, you were sleeping.
Set phasers to
Because
slumber.
at one point around this time period, the Master's describing the Doctor, and the Doctor is an interesting adversary. So it's like they're really setting it up.
Building up to this
building up
thing.
like this guy's more than just a one-off. And then there isn't later on after Joe says the Doctor acts childish. The Doctor says, "Well, the Master won't give up because he's too conceited." I love Joe gives him that. Well, you would know. Look.
Yeah, she does that. Frank mentioned earlier the music. I hate the music in this. It's horrible.
It's awful.
I felt as if the production team had a bunch of new tools and toys that they were given, like the blue screen, what we talked about earlier, the reverse shots. They used a sports camera when it wasn't being used for sports so that they could rewind the footage. So they had that new toy, and then they had electronic music or early electronic music. And I feel the music really takes me more out of it than like the old style of TV making.
There were moments in this story when they would layer music and like rushing like sound effects and dialogue that is a lot of those scenes are what really put me to sleep, because it was like they would start with a drone or like something that was electronic and droney, and then add another layer and then another layer, and trying to listen to dialogue. It was just like hypnotizing me and just putting me like out. And maybe for kids in the 70s, it amped up the tension for them as they were watching.
It made them sedate so they'd sit down. And then parents were like, maybe this TV thing's not a bad idea.
But I agree, Eugene. The audio work, along with some of the visuals, really fought the story.
They should have had some more like experimentation before they put it into production or something.
They didn't have time.
I know. I'm sorry for all those people that worked on it. They're probably dead. But I'm sorry. It took us out of it.
That was good enough.
Despite all the shortcomings of the production value, I did think that this Doctor has a big enough personality and look to him that like he definitely carried the show well.
A disguised master installs a plastic phone cord inside unit. The Doctor and Joe return and cut open the doll, only to find that it is solid plastic. The Doctor orders some supplies, which will take a while to arrive. He leaves Joe and Captain Yates behind to wait, and goes with the Brigadier to investigate the Feral factory. Yates turns on the Bunsen burner to make some cocoa.
Oh, good.
The heat activates the doll and it attacks Joe until Yates shoots it to pieces.
Thank goodness.
The Doctor and the Brigadier return with the plastic flower they found at the factory. The Doctor dismisses everyone when the phone rings. It's the Master calling, who sends sound waves through the phone to activate the cord, which attacks the Doctor in reverse. The Brigadier hears cries for help and saves the Doctor. Yates tells the Doctor that similar flowers were handed out all over the place as part of a promotion by masked men. They locate the truck carrying the carnival masked Autons, and the Brigadier orders an airstrike and leaves with Captain Yates.
My favorite part was the use of the word "blimey" by the telephone
Technician who's only installing a phone cord.
Well, they told him to get out of here. Where's your paperwork? He's like, "Blimey, you asking me? You know, I've been showing it."
And Yates didn't even. He's like, oh, okay, you're good.
Yeah. I know. I was wondering if it was going to be psychic paper, but I know it didn't. You know, we did watch the same show.
Albert, are you okay with this?
I was asleep a lot.
I was surprised that ended up being the master in disguise. I fell for it.
Well, because it was a different actor.
Yeah. Well, still.
But the production for this, it was in America, the production for Saturday morning, not for primetime shows. So just the budgets were so different between the two countries. You know, it's like, okay, they have to get this really bad mask when he pulls it off. But it's like,
It did look like him, though. Like, they painted it nice, really well.
They get the doll, and why did the doll need heat to work when all the others don't?
It's not explained, but that's just how the logic of the story worked.
I think I have a theory, but we'll talk about it when we get to the flowers bit.
Okay. And then the doctor wants to examine this doll. And, oh, look, it's just plastic. Right. That's what Autons are that he already knows. I mean, it's like...
Stretch.
Yeah, third episode is always the stretch. Before we
Sure
can get
stretch
to the
that
end.
scene. An off-screen autopsy of a plastic doll.
Yeah, that's right.
In
The
real-
scalpel goes down
in
and right
real
as
time.
it touches it.
Well, do you see the
to
scalpel?
doctor's
It's like
face.
it bounced off. It's like it's not going to actually cut anything. We can't show it.
Well, you know, somebody was like, we can't
We only
show
have the
him
one doll.
cutting into the doll's body.
We only have one doll. But they could have cut to other people looking.
But they can shoot the doll. They can't just dissect it. That was so weird. But still, it was so funny.
Yeah, the
Like,
whole
then I
chunks
also
are
like
coming
that-
out
I
of
was
it
just
rather
like-
than bullets
Yeah.
going into it. It just explodes.
Well, like he does the Autons, he's like, let's try the head. You know, but it's like, doctor, you already know this sucker's plastic. You know,
But then he orders the
no,
other.
this sucker's electrical.
tiny one.
He orders the other equipment so he can find out more about the doll.
And
But the
that's
whole idea
fine.
was we have to somehow separate him and the Brigadier from Yates and Joe because they want to go do different things.
right? Well, yeah,
But
because
it's
Yates
all
wants
just-
Coco.
It is. We have to fill this extra
But
episode.
doctor, why is it solid plastic?
And then it's just kind of like, okay,
It's a waste of plastic.
All right, we found out where the Autons and the Master is. All right, blow them up.
But I thought the booby trap set for the Doctor was a little, kind of on the fly. Let's shove an Auton into the safe.
And instead of closing the door immediately, he yells to the Brigadier, "Watch out!" I'm like, just close the door.
Auton.
And there's a huge hole in the wall that
thinking,
the
is
Brigadier escaped.
I guess it would be okay. I was thinking, God, that whoever buys that building next is going to open up that safe, and there's going to be this dead Auton in there. Who were the previous owners of this place?
Blimey.
Joe and the doctor work to discover how the flowers are activated and find a code inside them. Joe tries to reach the Brigadier by walkie-talkie, which activates the flower. It sprays her face with clear plastic, covering her nose and mouth. She is suffocating until the doctor is able to remove the plastic. The plastic then dissolves, leaving no trace. The Master arrives with plans to kill the doctor and begins to monologue. They have distributed nearly 500,000 flowers and will activate them by radio. When 500,000 people die at once, it will cause enough chaos to allow the Nestene to land their invasion force. The Master is going to kill the Doctor and Joe, but the Doctor grabs the Tardis circuit. If he shrinks the Doctor, he shrinks the circuit and can never travel in his Tardis again. At that moment, Joe accidentally reveals the plans for the airstrike, so the Master takes them to the quarry where the van and the Autons are parked.
Oh no.
I didn't realize he was going to shrink him. I thought it was just a gun. Did they say it's a shrink ray?
He's got the shrink thing that he used on
that he used in the beginning.
Gooch.
It's like his cigar.
Because that adds an air of sophistication.
So
the way
bizarre.
it's-
Alienness.
And it also looks like the way that the Sontaran did in Time Warrior.
So it shrinks and kills you at the same time.
It kills you by shrinking you. So it's not like when you get shrunk, you can still be a little guy going,
oh my goodness.
but when it shrinks you, you're dead.
It hurts.
Yeah, that would be painful.
I thought the airstrike was just a little bit overkill.
Yeah.
But at least the Brigadier said, no, if it gets out of the quarry,
Yeah.
it can go to a populous area and we can't destroy it then.
I was actually disappointed that it wasn't all the explosion of the van wasn't part of Master's plan to begin with. That could have been like the Moriarty thing where he knew that's what was going to happen, and that's why they're in the quarry, and that's why the situation was what it was. But then I'm like, they just dropped the ball.
So everybody's at the quarry while he's going to the radio station.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
He's
it
a
was,
step ahead,
yeah.
and he's not. He's just...
Yes, which made me sad because he's supposed to be smart and supposed to know what's happening all along. And I was like, oh.
Now I'm sad.
That would have been good.
It would have been. It would have made the writing better. So I was like, oh. So it's just, and then when he went back there, I'm like, why? Like, you're supposed to know that that was supposed to happen in the beginning.
Because we've rented this quarry and we're going to use it.
We got an extra day. Let's go back.
We got one window and one quarry.
I'm
one
sure a
glass
woman,
bottle.
said that back then, but no one would listen to her. After watching this episode, I watched Rose, the first episode with Eccleston again. And I liked it better having seen this, because there's two parts that I think they did definitely on purpose to reference this episode. And that is when they had the arm, and the doctor first met the Auton's arm in Rose's apartment. But they thought, oh, Mickey was supposed to throw that out. And it goes after his neck. And to me, that was just like Mr. Farrell Sr., and he has the doll on his neck, and it's attacking him. And then he pulls it off. Eccleston pulls off the arm, and it goes after Rose, which goes after the nose and mouth. It's grabbing her face and covering the nose and mouth and suffocating her. And so that reminded me of the daffodils. And it's just sort of seeing it one after the other. So I really like this. It's kind of a flashback to the Autons and what's going on. So those two just I thought were great.
And done better.
Now it makes more sense. Maybe I like that first episode more now.
One thing that used to bother me about the Rose episode is that if they're just plastic, it can look like anything. Why are they taking this humanoid form or like with a face, well, a vague face or whatever? But now that I know it's in reference to this.
To me, watching Rose, the Nestene consciousness is just taking over existing mannequins.
And they were mannequins.
Because when we were watching this episode, Frank actually had to point out to me that they're making these bodies. But you see, when I was watching it, I was so used to the Rose episode. Right. I'm like, okay, they got some mannequins, and they're animating the mannequins. But that isn't the case.
Right.
But the doctor says that the Nestene can manipulate plastics, but then they also create their bodies so they can put their consciousness into them. And the ones that are handing out the flowers are fighting with Rex Farrell and saying, no, the master's not here. We're taking our invasion forward. And so he's arguing with the actual Nestene, who are the Autons.
Right.
But a lot of the other plastic is just what they're using.
I wish they had played that up more. It really would have helped the climax of this episode if they had done more with the Autons suddenly becoming autonomous.
Because it seemed like the master was in control
the whole
the way
time.
that's written, and it's like he wasn't. There was that
Independence growing.
university going, no, they're trying to use the master to take over the earth. And the master's trying to use them as the same thing, but it's like, who's actually going to be ahead at the end of this?
Well, it's funny because I always thought the master was the silliest name for, the doctor has a nice ring to it, but the master just felt really geeky and silly. But now watching this episode, when that, what was his name? The Rex?
Farrell?
Yeah, was when he was, must obey the master.
Right.
And then, that makes sense then. If he has this power to hypnotize people and he's calling himself the master, then it fits, and now I like it.
And I just wish he would have acted
Stamp of
better.
approval.
I didn't like the
that
acting.
actor
Sorry.
was,
Right, but it's like him trying to fight the master's influence, but it didn't come off well. I don't know.
There's a lot of caveats we got to
Yeah.
Also, that takes us back to when we reviewed the TV movie with Eric Roberts, because we had the discussion, did he take over Yi? And we weren't quite certain whether he did or not.
Oh,
and it could be because some of us knew that the master hypnotizes people and some of us didn't.
Yeah. The Brigadier and Yates are at the quarry, awaiting the airstrike. They call it off once they see Joe and the doctor arrive with the master.
Abort! Abort! Abort!
We need more Bort license plates. They drive the van to the radio telescope where the doctor and Joe jump out to safety. The master goes to the control cabin to attach the Nestene energy unit. The doctor follows him and convinces the master that the Nestene will not see him as different. He will die along with all the humans. They will work together to reverse the radio's polarity, flinging the Nestene into space. The Autons are now brainless and fall to the ground. The master runs back to the van. When he comes out again, he has a gun and is shot dead by return fire from Yates. When they examine the body, they find it is Rex Farrell in a master mask. The van takes off and gets away. Back at Unit, the doctor tells them that the master has the circuit for his Tardis, which won't work on the horse trailer. The Master is stuck on Earth. We haven't seen the last of the Master.
At one point, Farrell, when he's coming here, tries to stop the van, and that's when the Doctor and Joe can jump out. And it's just, again, the guy chops him over one direction, and he falls the opposite direction. It's like, okay, you have to fall towards the camera.
I like how Joe's the one who escapes.
Yes.
Because
She's
that
able
was,
to get out
that
of
was
her-
one of her skills that she listed earlier. So
It was done well. The Doctor, I wish I could get out of my restraints. And she goes, here, my hand, I got out. Oh, good. And then she, frees the Doctor.
And then the pressing of the brake pedal for the Morse code. I thought it was a great idea, but why are you writing an essay?
Yeah,
Exactly.
When they read that message, I was like, what?
You got all of that.
Bomb on bus.
Now they're telling us
Don't
what's
go
going
above
on.
50. Bomb on bus. Stop.
Dear Brigadier,
It has been a fortnight since we have corresponded. I hope this finds you well. I am in rather distressed situations, as you can tell.
signed, truly yours.
And your friend, as always.
Oh, and Joe is here with me as well.
T.Doctor.
Yes, the radio stick. That's
What does he say, man? What does he say?
I always like it when the good guy and the bad guy have to work together for an even badder guy.
Yeah, but you don't flip in a half a second.
No, you don't, but
Which is why I wanted more of the Autons being autonomous. Because if they had built that up and if the Master had seen it, then it would be kind of like, oh yeah, this kind of makes sense. And I could have accepted that more.
they could have put more of that build in episode 3 instead of stretching out all that stuff.
But I totally agree with you.
And I did think, for as quick of a turn as it was, the actors sold it.
Yeah.
Like
And then they reverse the polarity, which is a key phrase of the Third Doctor's era.
Oh, really?
Everything they do is reverse the polarity. That answers it. And then just flings this awful
Right.
special effect out into space.
Like chalk lines on film or something. It looks horrible.
I thought it was sad that they killed so many people.
There's so much death in this.
Like, think about his mom. Like, she lost her husband and child.
Yeah.
Like, the
the
same
widow
day,
Farrell.
the widow Farrell.
Yeah.
So it's just like, if you think about like how many people died.
And all the unit soldiers, when we were
Yeah.
seeing them getting blown up. And I mean, it really is. And then the guy who falls to his death.
Oh, yeah, the guy
wow.
in the lab.
And then they call for the stretcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go a stretcher party.
One thing I thought of was if that had been filmed today, he would have hit some of the beams on the way
Yeah.
down and flipped. Casual death, too.
Casual, and that like not even like addressed, like when they saved them in the quarry, like how many of the people that were trying to save him died.
Yeah. And then
Not addressed.
And the Master drives off in this lumbering bus. They've got cars there, but no, sorry, it's the end of the episode. We'll meet again.
No one's left to drive them. Some of the explosions were good, but I thought some of the effects of the explosions were kind of funny because the people who were being blown up would kind of blow up with their arms up in the air and
Yeah,
fall back. It was like, it just sort of seemed big, grandiose explosions with their arms trying to fly or something.
And a number of the soldiers got shot in the gun.
Yeah. Because that's where they could hide
That's where they
it.
could put
Yeah.
the explosion.
Yeah.
Having seen Spearhead from space and Terror of the Autons, I like the continuity of the kind of yellow mustardy color explosion that they
Oh,
use
really?
on the.
Oh, yeah, they did do that. It's fair.
Yeah, when the Autons are firing their arm hand guns at
Oh, I see.
the unit soldiers,
Yates just doesn't take crap from anybody. He's just like, nope, shooting you dead.
and the guy Farrell masquerading as the Master does a great death fall.
That is how you die on screen. I mean, he's the innocent guy, Rex, and there's nobody cares that he's dead, and there's no, oh, I killed the wrong man. It was just nothing.
But at least we got the Master stuck on Earth. Yay.
Looking forward to that.
Comparing this to Tomb of the Cybermen, one of the things that I felt that Tomb of the Cybermen did much better was all the characters were human and they had motivation and they were deceitful. So you had to figure out like, well, why are they doing that? And what is, why are they sending those people off down there? And what it allowed you to kind of be more with them as characters, where this, I think part of the problem is that the Master's power of hypnotism, like you end up with mindless zombies that you do try to care about, but you can't reason out like, well, why are they doing this? because it's because they're under control. And so I think that was one of the reasons why like this whole arc kind of fell flatter compared to some older ones, which was really good. Like even though the effects were cheesy in Tomb of the Cybermen, you could actually follow the story and the characters.
And that one, because it was a very interesting script to see where everyone has different motivations and who's gonna everyone's trying to convince the other person to side with them. So you really didn't know where this was gonna go. Where this was, we know what the Master's doing for the most part. We see that they don't know, and we just watch them try to figure out what we already know. Mm-hmm. So I agree. Yeah,
and the Autons subplot probably would have been the key place to have that. Like, oh, are they going to double cross?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's only like one layer of story going on this whole 4 episodes. Whereas in Tomb of the Cybermen, you are trying to figure out what's going on and why is that character walking in the background.
And everyone has their own motivations in it. The guy who thinks he's being siding with the woman scientist, for his own gain, and then she has his. Everyone has their own ulterior motive.
Yeah.
Right. It almost would have been better if Rex had gone with the Master without being hypnotized.
Right.
And because I couldn't really invest in anybody, a lot of stuff just went over my head.
Right.
Because I wasn't closely following.
Or even if Rex acted it better and they had more of what his struggle was, trying to come out of it to make it a little more interesting. But that's not what this was at the time.
Right.
They were doing, I think at this point, it was more for kids.
Cartoon.
This is just more simple, one-dimensional. And some of the other doctors in the past had a little bit more. That's how they wrote it. The whole season was, we have budget cuts. So I think part of that was also just make the stories a little more simplistic. And that translated to the writing and the character development.
Is there any sort of morality tale that they're trying to tell in this story? And there's
Too much
not.
plastic.
But but it could have been. It could have been the dangers of chemicals.
Yeah,
It could, but there's no argument about it.
Right.
It's just mentioned and then moved on. So it is. But like earlier Doctor Who's, there's deeper questions that are asked. I mean, I know there's one episode where they go back to the Aztecs and one of the companions gets mistaken as a goddess of the Aztecs. And so she thinks it's great because she's going to tell them to stop doing human sacrifices. And the doctor says, you can't. You'll change history. The Aztecs are what the Aztecs are and they can't change. Realize what you're going to do. And that created the moral dilemma of, do I change this society? Do I have the right to change this society? And if I do this, what is going to be the consequences? And will it actually even be anything better? Even though I want to save people's lives. You don't get that here.
Maybe there were a bunch of kids in the 70s who wouldn't answer a phone after this.
Oh, the cord's going to get him?
The cord's going to get him. Like people who didn't go swimming after Jaws.
Well, the doctor's face during that scene.
Oh
was
my
just
God.
Way
That's
over
the
the top.
worst.
Oh. Oh, gosh.
Did you get it? Maybe we'll put a screen cap of that on the website.
We should.
This serial has been heavily criticized following its airing due to making everyday things horrific and into killing items,
There you
including
go.
a plastic chair, a troll doll, a telephone cord, the artificial daffodil, and then officers from Scotland Yard also complained to the producer about their representation of the Autons masquerading as policemen, saying that they would make the public afraid of policemen.
Kind of like what Blink did for statues.
Right.
But it's such a common occurrence nowadays.
Yeah, I was going to say, in every Moffat episode.
I do like our version of the Master now more after seeing this, and I also like the whole the network of mind control. Like I understand now that that's like taking that kind of hypnotism
to a different level
idea to a modern level, and so thank you for sharing that part because that does make the new
whole
season
actually on
feel
the
better.
way over here today I was listening to our last episode that just got dropped of was it Last of the Time Lords, talking about the Archangel Network. So yeah, now that you mention it,
And that's why we want to do these classics.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not the best episodes in the world,
but they're going to tie in somehow.
but we do want to tie into what we're talking about in the present.
I remember even thinking in the episode Rose when their hands became guns, how ridiculous that was. But now I enjoy it because it's a reference to
callback.
this. Yeah. But what you just said about the Master makes a lot of sense as well. It's just very layered.
So as we were going through Terror of the Autons, I was just noting down things that have carried over and that stay consistent with our modern version that we know of the Doctor. The Doctor's motivation is curiosity. The Master's still vain. Joe Grant as a companion is used for exposition. Like you said, you mentioned the Archangel Network in the last of season 3 is the master's hypnotizing power gone to a different level and a modern level. And then what you mentioned with the Autons, their first sort of appearance in Rose, the choking aspect and the asphyxiation aspect done here. And then
The gun.
The gun.
hand
Well,
gun.
that's more of a
The gun hand.
Yeah.
Let's not confuse
more
the two.
continuity.
yeah, that's more continuity. And then also, I just found this very convenient is that this is the first appearance of the master, and through us, the first appearance that the master has, and the first contact he has with the doctor is over the telephone, just in the way that John Sim and David Tennant have first contact is through Martha's cell phone.
You're
Oh,
right.
really? That's interesting.
Oh, that's so cool. I like that.
Because it's built up of them talking about the other, and then when they finally get to talk to each other, it's over the phone, and that stays the same. So Terror of the Autons.
That's awesome.
And Sound of Drums have that connective tissue. And it was also worth noting that the Doctor has his band of military men with him. The Master has his band of circus people, carnies, backing him up. On the surface level, the Master is very charming and charismatic, and the Doctor is very abrasive. So I think that duality between Moriarty and Holmes is very realized in what they were trying to set out to do.
Oh, if something works, steal it.
Real quick, Captain Yates is played by Richard Franklin, and he was in Rogue One. He was an engineer on Edu. He's one of the ones that gets shot.
Well, okay.
That wraps up Terror of the Autons. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook.
At The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by our very own Auburn.
Find me at auburnbinkley.com.
You can find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcasts.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
You can leave comments there or email us at
whoknewpodcast@gmail.com.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who.
The longest running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
thanks to Russell,
Sydney Newman.
Verity Lambert.
Ron Grainer.
And all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.
I think we should dedicate this episode to Denny Powell, though.
Yeah. Denny did a good job.
He was the hardest worker.
Yeah, he was, man. Practicing at home.
I guess we'll see him next fall.
You don't want to follow along, do you? It's like I printed out one extra. If you want to follow
Sure,
along.
I'll follow along.
Maybe that's how I'll actually remember what
Read
Yeah,
ahead.
actually, no, you should give it to Josh.
Did this happen yet? Oh, yes, it didn't.
That's part of the charm of the show.
And check mark. As
Right, right.
Just read ahead a paragraph. and
It's
then you could
nice
be-
that you find yourself charming.
That's what my mom said.
Doesn't count. Just kidding.
Yeah, now that's just me.
That's one to grow on.
You say that a lot.
Do I? Knowing is half the battle.
No, that's mine.
It's January!